Good evening, everyone, and welcome to NWABR's third virtual gala. This time last year, we held our second virtual event, and you may recall that we recognized the biomedical research community in the Pacific Northwest for their response to the coronavirus pandemic. At the time, we did not know how long the pandemic would last, and we also hoped that by this stage in 2022 that we would be back to normal, whatever that means. For tonight's event, we polled gala attendees and asked them how they would like the event to be held. One clear option was to hold this event back in person. That was the option that the board of NWABR wanted, with the chance for all of us to be together in person so that we could celebrate this amazing field of biomedical research. That said, we live in a democracy. And you all, our amazing community of biomedical supporters, told us very clearly that you wanted us to keep this as a virtual event. The virtual event comes with a lot of advantages. You can view this from anywhere in the world. And tonight, we have attendees from across the country and from Canada. You can also view the gala in your PJs. Doesn't matter what you're wearing. Lastly, you can view this event safely. The coronavirus pandemic is still with us, variants are still occurring, and as an organization that fundamentally believes in science, we could not tell you that we could run the event in a manner that was risk-free. So here we are. We are so excited that we can join you virtually and that this platform can help to sustain the connection that we have with you, our most vital supporters. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so glad that you can join us for tonight's celebration of biomedical research and science. The theme of tonight's event is trust. One of the telling statistics from the coronavirus pandemic has been the difference in outcomes for the vaccinated and unvaccinated. These outcomes are clear in this graph from the CDC that shows that people who are unvaccinated are dying at a rate 17 times higher than those that are fully vaccinated and boosted. For those of us who work in science, this graph provides overwhelming evidence of the value of the coronavirus vaccines. Yet in America, we are sitting at just over 71% of the population 5 or older that are fully vaccinated. We all know that there are a variety of good and bad reasons for this low vaccination rate. From NWABR's perspective, a fundamental underlying reason for these low rates of vaccination is a lack of trust. A lack of trust in research, a lack of trust in science, a lack of trust in healthcare, and a lack of trust in the government. The founders of NWABR were aware of this importance of trust in biomedical research when they set up the organization 33 years ago. And for all of that time, the mission of NWABR has been a variation of promoting the public's trust and ethical conduct in biomedical research. So 13 years ago, our founders realized the fundamental value of trust in the work that we do in biomedical research, and that fundamental truth still applies equally today. In tonight's virtual event, we are going to focus on efforts to build trust in this vital work. Our plan is to highlight your work, including highly successful efforts that have built trust. Then we'll do a little fundraising and allow you to get back on with your lives in roughly about an hour. Tonight, our journey will include Ken Gordon, our Executive Director, will report to you formally on the year that has just gone by. Our immediate past president, Dr. Sally Thompson-Iritani, will present Edison Awards to acknowledge 2 NWABR board members that retired from the board earlier in the year, and who each made singular contributions to NWABR becoming a more responsive and relevant organization. Greg Yondel, one of NWABR's 2 vice presidents, will then introduce the recipients of NWABR's Alvin J. Thompson Award. The recipients of this award are Drs. Lynn Beatty and Judy Illis, and the Tahltan Nation, whose traditional territories are located in northern British Columbia. Gordon Roble, NWABR's other vice president, will introduce the Buster and Nancy D. Alvin Award to you as well, which this year is being presented to Dr. Nancy Hagwood and the U.S. Animal Research Openness Initiative. As the evening wraps up, I will return to ask you all to consider making a donation to NWABR. The board members of NWABR have already committed over $20,000 of their own money to NWABR this year. Tonight, we will be asking you, the members of our incredibly supportive research community, to add your contribution. Funds will support the ongoing research work, outreach that NWABR undertakes aimed at both raising the profile of and support for biomedical research in the Northwest. So before I pass the baton to Ken to highlight NWABR's year, I just want to share a few sincere thank yous. First, I want to acknowledge all of you for being here for our annual celebration of research. I also want to thank our event sponsors, Advara, WCGIRB, Pharma, ScienceWorks, and We Work for Health. The board of NWABR, which now consists of 43 board members, does an amazing job of stewarding our modest resources to make an outsized impact in both the Northwest and also nationally. Board members represent some of the most forward-thinking, dedicated, and innovative research organizations that break new ground and create new knowledge literally on a daily basis. This new knowledge rebounds to the benefit of science, the benefit of animal health, the benefit of individuals' health, and as we have learned in the past few years, to the benefit of the world. There is no doubt that the contribution of our member organizations has been and will continue to be pivotal to our returning the world to an improved place post this pandemic. It is now my pleasure to welcome NWABR's Executive Director, Ken Gordon.
Thank you, Aaron, for that introduction, and thank you also for your leadership, both at NWABR and also within the broader biomedical research community. As Aaron has outlined, the theme of this evening's event is trust. At NWABR, we spend considerable time thinking about trust as the word is core to our mission, promoting the public's trust in biomedical research and its ethical conduct. What we know from so many fields is that public trust is damaged, potentially irreparably, when people and organizations are dishonest, when they act only in their own interest, and when they treat people, animals, laws, and the environment as objects to only be used towards their own ends. The corollary to all this is that public trust can be built by honesty, by clear articulation of interest, and by demonstratively treating people, animals, and our communities fairly. The work of building trust is an intrinsic part of every step in the biomedical research process. There is a long process from developing a new research finding or idea to confirming a new and improved treatment. We often shorthand this lengthy process by referring to it as from bench to bedside. Most of you attending this event this evening already know about this as you live this every day. An idea about a new treatment, say a treatment for a rare disease, will often be run through computer modeling initially, then proceed to benchtop testing on samples, then testing with progressively higher orders of animals, checking for human research protections, and then various levels of phased human trials. Trust is an underpinning concept for all of this work. It is extremely rare for one person to have control over this entire process. At each new iteration, a researcher essentially receives a pass from the prior researcher, and they have to implicitly trust that prior researcher's work. NWABR supports the ethical conduct of research, or more simplistically, trust, through the provision of several research-focused conferences each year. In the last year, we've provided conferences that are focused on biosafety, the care and use of animals in research, overall security within research, human subjects protections. We've run 2 human clinical research conferences, and we've also done a workshop on research communications. In the midst of this ongoing pandemic, with all of these conferences but still being largely virtual, we've had 1,142 people attend these events this year. In my opinion, ethics within research is strong and improving, helped immeasurably by a deliberate attempt to bring in new and more diverse voices into the fold. When we look at the data on trust in biomedical research, we've actually done a great job of building and retaining trust both for my generation and for the generations that came before me. Where we have not done such a great job is communicating to younger audiences. It is not the nature of science to be boastful or even proactive about science communications. However, that is what younger generations are demanding from us. For better or worse, they were brought up in an always-on information environment. It's not good enough for them for information to exist in the public domain. Information needs to be polished, broken down into sound bites and memes, curated to their interest, and pushed into their devices. If information is not delivered in this highly proactive format, then it's considered to be hidden. Hidden means that there is something to hide, and something to hide means that there is something that is not trustworthy going on. So our normal way of carefully sharing information and research, for this younger audience, it feels reticent, and it raises, I believe, the unjustified feeling that we have something to hide and therefore that we cannot be trusted. We can't ignore this audience. This younger group now represents a significant and growing proportion of our community. We don't have a choice. We have to respond to this if we want to keep the social contract that exists and which allows us to do research. NWABR has been working on issues around openness and trust for the last 33 years. We've provided programming to middle and high school students to try and break down barriers to understanding this work, and to also encourage these incredibly passionate and smart kids to think about research careers. And these kids are smart. NWABR this summer has run a series of week-long science camps for students interested in research. I got to spend one afternoon a week with these students. I gave them the challenge of designing from scratch what research protection should look like if we had the overriding goal of building trust with their generation. And week after week, these students came up with guidelines on how to protect research materials, the work of our IBCs, animals, our IACUCs, humans, our IRBs, and our clinical research professionals. They also talked about how to protect staff during a time of increasingly intrusive activist protest, and they gave considerations as to how we need to message science. And here is the spoiler for us all here. They are not interested in messages from old white men like me. They want to hear from people who reflect the diversity of our community and who are young. And just to make your night, I asked them how young, and they thought that the people who are spokespersons, our spokespersons, if we want to get the message to them, they need to be in the sort of 21 to 28-year-old age group. Again, not old people like me. At NWABR, we also invest the hard-earned dollars that we receive from our donors, and that's all you here this evening at this event, into public messaging about research, science, the use of animal models, and the work coming out of our local research institutions. These campaigns with your support reach hundreds of thousands of sets of eyes, promoting the work that you all do, and they also help to build trust. Lastly, NWABR has been helping to lead national efforts to think about research differently, to promote diversity in research, and to promote and support openness in research. All of this work, we believe, helps to build trust. And we're seeing amazing examples of trust building throughout research. At this gala this evening, we're honouring several people and groups who've both done amazing science and have done this at the same time as they have built trust. And I think some of the awardees would even suggest that without the commitment to building trust as a guiding principle, that their actual science could not have happened. So I want to thank you all for trusting NWABR with your time, your talent, and your treasure. This is such important work, and this is work that has been sustained now for 33 years, and we genuinely could not do this without you. And so now I'd like to hand over to Sally Thompson-Iritani. Sally is NWABR's immediate past president, and she will present 2 Edison Awards to 2 of our long-standing NWABR board members who stepped down from the board earlier this year. Sally, over to you.
Thank you, Ken. As Ken mentioned, NWABR as an organization is now 33 years old. The board of NWABR currently has 43 board members, And these board members give of their time, their talent, and treasure to ensure that NWABR provides great services and remains a relevant and trusted resource for the Northwest biomedical research community. In addition to the members of the NWABR board, we have approximately 37 current additional volunteers that provide some degree of voluntary service to NWABR. Since 2014, a further 53 board members have cycled off the board as they have retired or changed roles within their organizations. We cannot overstate the value of that these 123 people have brought to NWABR's operations over this tumultuous decade. We are a better, stronger, more nimble, and relevant organization because of the immense voluntary contributions from people like Dr. Steve Libby and Dr. Kim Stocking, who are being honored here tonight. Both Drs. Libby and Stocking commenced their roles with NWABR as volunteers. Dr. Stocking initially volunteered with NWABR to help with the BioExpo program in 2014. She joined the board in 2016 when she took on the role as the attending veterinarian at Seattle Children's. Then when she transitioned roles, she continued to stay on the board as she joined the University of Washington as the attending veterinarian and the director of the Office of Animal Welfare. Dr. Stocking stepped down from her board role in NWABR at roughly the same time that she retired from her role at the University of Washington at the end of 2021. Dr. Steve Libby also started at NWABR as a volunteer, helping to create NWABR's inaugural Institutional Biosafety Conference. He led this conference from its inception, drawing upon his experience as the chair of the University of Washington's IBC to ensure that this conference would remain both timely and relevant to this vital function. Dr. Libby joined the board of NWABR in 2017 and also stepped down as he retired from his day job as a scientist at the University of Washington. It is my considerable pleasure to present Dr. Stocking and Dr. Steve Libby as they receive their Edison Awards for helping to shine a light on science. Turn it over to them. Thank you very much.
Thank you to NWABR for this award. During my 30 years of involvement in biomedical research, I've seen some amazing benefits to both human and animal kind come out of this work. There's a lot of really exciting research also being conducted today, which I'm sure will lead to additional benefits in the future, and I look forward to seeing what those are. I'd like to take this opportunity to give a special shout out to some often unsung heroes in biomedical research, and that is the animal care and veterinary staffs. These people do an amazing job of providing compassionate care to research animals 365 days a year. And without their efforts, quality research could not be done. So I want to acknowledge and express my gratitude for all of their efforts. Finally, I'd like to thank NWABR for supporting biomedical research and for advocating the importance of research to the public. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much from the directors and all the staff and board members at the Northwest Association for Biomedical Research for presenting me this award. I'm very honored. This conference that we started back in 2016 was meant to give biosafety professionals what I call nuts and bolts information to bring back to their institutions in a venue that was perhaps a lot less expensive than traveling to a national meeting. So the Institutional Biosafety Committee, or conference rather, was designed to be just that, a conference for people to share information, to have outside professionals come in and either in person or virtually, talk about their areas of expertise. The more important thing is that we always wanted to include, and we're very successful at including, local biosafety and lab safety professionals from in and around the Puget Sound and the greater Washington area. So there was a bit of a personal connection for those people, plus we got all the a lot of people from Washington, D.C. and the national organizations to talk. So all in all, I figured that my tenure there was pretty successful. We did what we said we were going to do, and I'm pretty proud of it, and I'm very proud to have accepted this award. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Kim, and thank you, Steve. I'd like to add my personal congratulations to Steve Libby and to Kim Stocking, and just to thank you for all the work that you've done for NWABR over the years. I'd now like to hand over to Greg Yandel. Greg is one of NWABR's 2 vice presidents, and he'll be presenting the Alvin J. Thompson Award this evening. Greg is the Director of Research Finance at Providence, and so Greg, it's over to you.
Each year, the board of NWABR presents the Alvin J. Thompson Award to an awardee that has achieved high standing in the life science research community. Nominees should be known for or engaged in cutting-edge research and must demonstrate a commitment to ethical research practices and the advancement of public trust in research. This year, we are reaching across the borders to recognize Drs. Lynn Beatty and Judy Illes from the University of British Columbia, as well as representatives from the Tahltan First Nation, for the way that they came together to form a research partnership that met the highest ideals of ethical research and the advancement of trust. Between 1998 and 2009, 9 members of the Tahltan First Nation were referred to the University of British Columbia Hospital Clinic for Alzheimer's Disease and Related Disorders, or UBCH CARD, for medical assessment in the context of a strong family history of early onset dementia. Genetic testing was conducted on an affected family member in 2006, identifying a mutation in the penicillin-1, PS1, gene and confirming a diagnosis of early onset familial Alzheimer's disease, or EOFAD. Although many other families around the world are known to carry PS1 mutations, the PS1 mutation identified in this family had never been seen before and could therefore be described as a new or novel PS1 mutation. Review of the family history identified over 100 family members in direct lineage of the affected individuals and at risk of inheriting this condition. The identification of the genetic mutation in this family raised concerns regarding the dissemination of information and provision of clinical services given the constraints posed by geography and funding. At the same time, it introduced research, educational, and outreach opportunities. Through a Family Day event organized at UBCH CARD and a health fair held in the nation's territories in 2009, the nation signaled its desire to pursue further exploration about the disease and embarked on a collaborative endeavor with the National Core for Neuroethics at UBC, which is today known as Neuroethics Canada, and UBCH CARD. The project began with the hosting of a collaborative planning meeting in 2009 with community members and elders. This meeting set the parameters for a project that would be inclusive, beneficial, and relevant for everyone involved. It led to a signed research agreement in 2012 with the formation of a community advisory group, both of which guided research throughout the project. The specific goals of the research project were 1. Determine how the Tahltan Nation understands Alzheimer's disease within both traditional Indigenous and Western medical framework. And 2, identify how culturally relevant resources can improve understanding of the prediction, diagnosis, and care of this disease. And lastly, 3, contribute to the creation of resources that are culturally relevant and meaningful to the Tahltan communities. Tahltan Territory is located in northern British Columbia, Canada, and encompasses about 93,000 square kilometers. Tahltan Territory is comprised of 3 main communities: Telegraph Creek, Dease Lake, and Iskut. The Tahltan people have occupied their territories around the upper reaches of the Stikine River since time immemorial. The board of NWABR was particularly impressed by this collaboration, as it showed a working model of a collaboration between research and a community that brought the knowledge and expertise of all the parties together for the betterment of both research and the community. This is both difficult to do, and successful examples of such collaborations are still rare. It is now my considerable pleasure to introduce you to Drs. Beatty and Illes and representatives of the Tahltan Nation. Thank you.
Jeanette Hotia, Chad Norman Day Ushia. I am the president of the Tahltan Central Government and the spokesman for the Tahltan Nation. We are coming to you today from Vancouver, which is my birthplace, and we're on the lands of the Squamish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Musqueam peoples. We're so honored to be a part of this award. We want to thank the UBC neuroethics team, everybody in the Tahltan Nation, all the funders, all the medical staff, and everybody that contributed to this project over the years in a good way. It's so important for us as Tahltan people to better understand the Alzheimer's disease. And it's been incredible to see how we've been able to better educate and inform our people about something like this, which has impacted all of our families. My grandmother comes from a family that had a lot of Alzheimer's disease. The majority of her brothers and sisters, many of her nieces and nephews have Alzheimer's. And it's projects like this that bring about true reconciliation between the UBC team and between the Tahltan Nation. And I just want to thank everybody again that was involved. This is something we can take a lot of pride in, and this is just the beginning for us. And we look forward to continue to work alongside our people with great partners like UBC and just do the best we can and to continue serving our people that have Alzheimer's. Thank you so much.
I am Christine Ball. I am a Tahltan Nation member, and I'm the health director for the Tahltan Band. We were introduced to this project shortly after I became health director, and it was through the work of UBC, and it was actually a very personal for me because I had a close family member that was being tested. So that's how I became involved. And also our nurse in charge at the time, Nancy Norby, Kwok, worked at the clinic as well. She was a nurse there for many years. She was also within the family. So it was very dear to us to know more, and to bring more knowledge to the nation regarding Alzheimer's and the impacts of it on family members and on the nation as well. And it's the things that have been developed from this project has helped families, and that has helped members in the community. It's helped ways in which we work with families, ways in which the resources, I guess, that families gain, because Alzheimer's, the organization Alzheimer's BC itself, we've led different family members to them for resources as well, just working like simple little things within the home to help in the early stages of families and so on with this disease and that, so that's helped a lot. Yeah, that's mostly what I want to focus on. And I also, just thinking about and listening to you, Ken, regarding this award recognition, it warms my heart to know that it may benefit other nations, because it's been a very, very good relationship working with Dr. Ellis and Dr. Beatty and with UBC, with our family members. Yeah, it's been a very good relationship, and a lot of education for us. I know I've just visited my sister yesterday, who's in a home, and just listened to her two sons talk about it. And all along in her process, I've met with the family, we've met together as family for the best interest of my sister, which I don't think, without the knowledge, I don't think that would have happened, so yeah, it's been a good relationship, and thank you.
The UBC Hospital Clinic for Alzheimer's disease and related disorders started in the early 80s. It had a mandate to provide assessment and management for people who were referred to the clinic, to be involved with counseling and education, and also to be involved with research. The research was something new as far as I was concerned, but by keeping continuous notes and good data, we were able to develop some particular projects. And one of them is related to the fact that Dr. Patricia Baird was the head of medical genetics at UBC during that time in the early 80s. And she suggested that we do complete family histories on anyone who was referred to the clinic. And in order to make that happen, she suggested Dr. Dessa Sadovnik to do the job. And Emily Dwash is here today, and she is one of the genetic counselors in the clinic at the present time. Some years ago, a person from the Tahltan Nation was referred to the clinic, and the situation was that she had progressive cognitive impairment, and as well as the cognitive impairment, it was noted that there were a number of family members that had a disease like Alzheimer's disease, and there was a great interest in learning more about it in terms of this patient and other family members. The person was seen at the clinic, and through various means, we were able to find out that she had a unique presenilin-1 gene that affected and caused the early onset familial Alzheimer's disease in the Alzheimer's patients who were members of the Tahltan Nation. Subsequently, we offered testing because we could do genetic testing for diagnosis, and that was helpful in some situations, but we also offered predictive testing, and no one wanted to have that. And so joining with Dr. Judy Illes and her colleagues, we started to look at some of the reasons behind that. And you're going to hear the rest of that story from Dr. Illes. And I want to say that I'm very thrilled to be part of this trio who are receiving this award from your organization. And I'm very grateful for the work that I've done with Judy and her colleagues, with my colleagues at the Alzheimer Clinic, and in addition to that, working with the Tahltan Nation in a very special way. I say thank you very much, and I've learned so much from working with them, including the fact that early on in the disease, they lose their understanding of their culture, which is a big missing link together with memory and other kinds of things that happen. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this generous award from NWBAR. It's an honor to receive it and to really acknowledge the work that UBC and Neuroethics Canada and the Alzheimer's Clinic and the Tahltan First Nation have done together now for 15 years over time to bring together knowledge and co-creation of research. You heard some of the history of the project from Dr. Lynn Beattie, in whose giant footsteps I actually follow and whose collaboration and wisdom I learn so much from on a daily basis. Also, in working with the Tahltan First Nation, I've learned so much about the medicine wheel. And in moving from the medicine wheel to this project, in fact, what we created was a new kind of wheel, a wheel that has to do with co-creation of research, collaboration, trust, respect, honoring each other, honoring different ways of seeing, including two-eyed seeing, and honoring distance, and distance that can be closed when people come together with good intention to work together to really create knowledge around health and wellness and neurologic diseases and mental health conditions as well. So it's really been such a privilege. I'd like to acknowledge that I'm videoing this message with you from the lands, the territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations people on which UBC resides and on which Neuroethics Canada is privileged to do its work. I was repatriated here with my family from the United States in 2007, so this recording actually marks a 15-year history of my being back in Canada, and the privilege I've had to work with Canadians and Indigenous people to take neuroethics and bring it outside of its Western thinking, its Western box, and bring new kinds of knowledges to it. I couldn't have found more generous and thoughtful and dedicated collaborators than those here at UBC and those among the Tahltan First Nation. And I couldn't be more gratified to hear that so many of the barriers that we work to break down, stigma, closing gaps of intergenerational knowledge that were torn due to colonialism and residential schools, enabling people to talk about the gene and the disease in ways that were comfortable and meaningful to them, and to bringing our worlds together is an incredible privilege. It's a privilege and an honor to be recognized by all of you with this award. I thank you deeply from the bottom of my heart, and I look forward to meeting you in person, hopefully sometime in the near future. And to my collaborators, Dr. Lynn Beatty, Christine Ball, Chad Day, Rachel Butler, Ilana Brief, Sean Stevenson, Lindsay Bruce, and others at Neuroethics Canada, our wonderful researchers who worked with us. I thank all of them so deeply, and those who enabled us to do the work, including the Michael Smith Foundation for Health Research, Vancouver Foundation, the Canadian Institutes for Health Research, and others. Thank you deeply. I'm just so grateful.
I'd like to add my congratulations to Dr. Beatty and to Dr. Illis, and also want to sincerely thank Chad Day and Christine Ball, the representatives of the Tahltan Nation. It was a genuine pleasure to meet with you and to have worked with you in relation to this evening's event. It's now my job to introduce you to Dr. Gordon Roble. Gordon is NWABR's Vice President also. He shares that role with Greg Yandel, and he'll be presenting this evening the Buster and Nancy D. Alvin Award. Gordon is the Associate Vice President of Shared Resources and attending veterinarian at the Fred Hutchinson Cancer Center. So Gordon, over to you.
Thank you, Ken. The Buster and Nancy D. Alvin Award is presented by NWABR to a person or an organization who has used their time, talent, or treasure to work for an improved biomedical research community. This year, we are jointly acknowledging Dr. Nancy L. Haywood and the U.S. Animal Research Openness Initiative in recognition of her lifetime contribution to ethically conducted biomedical research and the role that the initiative is playing to promote openness and build trust in research. Dr. Haywood has had an exemplary career in biomedical research stretching back to her PhD at North Carolina Chapel Hill, her postdoc at Johns Hopkins, and 17 years in various roles in the biotech and pharmaceutical sectors. She has then spent 10 years as founding director of the viral vaccines program at the Seattle Biomedical Research Institute, and since 2008 has been the director of the Oregon National Primate Research Center. In this role, she has led the openness initiatives at the center and has continued to contribute as a researcher focusing on the prevention of mother-to-child transmission of HIV. In 2020, Dr. Haywood also took on the responsibility of leading the U.S. Animal Research Openness Initiative. The USARO initiative, representing a diverse research community, empowers individuals and institutions to communicate the essential need for animal research in basic science discoveries and medical interventions, benefiting both people and animals through the principles of openness, building trust, supporting science, and countering misinformation. Dr. Haywood is also a past board member and board chair of NWABR. Dr. Nancy Haywood.
Thank you so much, Gordon, for this award from NWABR. As you noted in your remarks, I was involved with the board of NWABR in the early 2000s, so this award really means a great deal to me. I want to talk about the two aspects of the award and focus first on my research and give you a sense for what that has been like, because I think it will help you understand my perspective on the importance of building trust with the public. I've been doing HIV research for almost 40 years, and during this time we've seen the disease ebb and wane and flow, and it continues to be a pandemic of a different sort. And during this time frame, we wanted to see if we could potentially come up with vaccines or therapies that would help to prevent mother-to-child transmission, which is what happens when an HIV-infected mother comes to the clinic and then is not treated, but then has a good chance of 35% or so of transmitting to her child. And this continues to happen throughout the world. We had the idea that it might be possible to make a vaccine. The vaccines have been elusive to us in the HIV field, unfortunately, but the therapies have not, and we now have tools called antibodies that are effective, much as they are in treating cancer. They can be used to prevent HIV infection. There was a trial published this year that showed that was the case. And so we had the idea that we could give these antibodies to babies after they were born. And in order to test this idea, we needed an animal model. And throughout this 40 years that I mentioned, there hasn't been available any model except for the primate model. We couldn't use computers, we couldn't use tissue culture, we couldn't use a small animal model to test the concept that we were interested in, because they just weren't working for HIV. So we needed to use the primate model, and that's really been the subject of my research now over especially the last 20 years. And the good news is that when we can test these antibodies, these are human antibodies that we have graciously been given to us by our collaborators, the very same antibodies that are being tested in the clinic. These antibodies in monkeys can stop the virus if they're given within a day or two after exposure to the virus by the oral route, which is how babies get infected during birth. And we're very excited about this, and we are interested in the idea that not only can antibodies stop infection, but they could also be long-lived. They could persist in the circulation long enough for the baby to breastfeed, which is really good for the health of the baby and the mother. These experiments really cannot be done safely in human babies. They could not and cannot until we could show that there was efficacy, so we could get some of the variables out of the way. We could figure out how much antibody do we need? When should we give it? How late is too late? And we've discovered these answers to many of these questions, and now these antibodies are being tested in the clinic, and the early data look very promising. So I'm encouraged that our work has been taken to the clinic. Doing research in animal models brings me to the second part of my remarks, which is that we have an enormous responsibility to be sure that our work is ethical and that it follows the regulatory rules. This is important for us. We must be good stewards of the animals that we assign to our protocols so that we're sure we're not using too many or too few animals in order to get the answer that we need. And the other aspect of building trust is recognizing those who are our partners. And our partners are animal care workers and veterinary staff who provide the outstanding animal care to our animals and make sure that we are providing the very best environment for our animals during the study. I've been really proud to work with my partners at the Oregon National Primate Center and the Washington National Primate Research Center, the two places where I've done this mother-to-child research. Importantly, our research was approved not only by the grant we got, that's peer review, but also by the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. So those two important regulatory steps are required for any sort of study. And of course, we do that. But the second part of this is we need to talk about what we do. After we get the answer, we publish our data, but it's more than that. It's about talking at scientific meetings, and it's about talking to the public. And I've been lucky that I've had a chance to talk more broadly because of my interest in this subject, and in general, people are interested in preventing mother-to-child transmission, and so it's been fun to get a chance to speak at different organizations and especially to the public. I've benefited greatly by working with organizations such as NWABR and Americans for Medical Progress, two organizations that are outstanding at providing us with additional talking points that help us give better talks and have helped train me as a speaker to a degree. I want to thank them now. And I've tried to support these organizations over the years because they do great work to support science, technology, engineering, and math, the STEM fields, for students of all ages. This leads me to speak about the U.S. Animal Research Openness Initiative. I'm honored to be here with you this evening as the current chair of the steering committee for this initiative, and I've worked closely with a group of individuals who have given a tremendous amount of their time to guide this initiative in the United States in an effort to move the needle of U.S. opinion about animal research. How are we going to do this? We want to find examples of organizations and institutions that do this well. And my partners in this work have been and are veterinarians, senior administrative leaders, institutional officials, researchers, and also leaders from nonprofits, such as the ones I've mentioned, NWABR and AMP. We're poised to engage our partners now and to build on what we've learned to move this needle in the United States. And what we're doing is building on the success that several countries have had in changing public opinion by being more open and finding ways for organizations to talk about this more fully. Many organizations like my own institution, Oregon Health and Science University, have shown that openness leads to better understanding of research and more acceptance by the public. So we want to replicate this throughout the nation. It's so important that we tell our stories, and we need to have a greater understanding of science. If there's anything we've learned through the COVID-19 pandemic, it's that we need to explain science better. All of us need to do this better. I'm so honored to be accepting this Albert Award this evening on behalf of our steering committee, and as well as to recognize my career. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hagwood. Your lifetime commitment to the openness in research is humbling for all of us. Just to remind you, my name is Aaron Putsky, and it is my honor to be the new board president of NWABR, taking over from Sally Thompson-Iritani earlier this year. I work for Whitworth University, based in Spokane, Washington, where I am a professor of biology and a researcher. Now is the part of the evening when we ask for your support. If you are able, we encourage you to support NWABR with a donation. A little button is going to pop up on your screen in a few seconds, and you can click on that, and it will take you to NWABR's #ThanksResearchGiving page. Your donations to NWABR are vital to our role of building public trust in research. As Ken outlined, the need to better communicate research to different generations is constantly changing, fickle, and often a complicated undertaking. Your support this evening will give us the tools to continue to improve and fine-tune messages that build trust in research and engage young people to get them excited about careers in science, and to work with you all as we try to meet the challenge and imperative of improved diversity in our field. To give you one practical example of how your donations support this work, this summer we moved our science camps back to in-person instruction. Students chose from week-long summer camps focused on forensic science, cancer, or genetics. All the students also attended a session that Ken ran each week on research ethics. It cost NWABR approximately $50,000 to run these camps. Now, these camps are funded by the students who can afford to pay, as well as donations from this gala, including scholarships of about $10,000, so we can encourage students from non-traditional backgrounds into these camps. These camps are a rare opportunity to engage students about the science that underpins research. One student and their family traveled all the way from Tennessee to Seattle to attend these camps and stayed there for 3 weeks so they could attend all 3 camps. That's pretty awesome. A number of the campers are joining us this evening for the gala, and I just want to express my thanks to all of them. They are truly the future of biomedical research, and they are amazing people. So please click that little button that has popped up on your screen. Make a contribution to NWABR to support the public's trust in ethically conducted biomedical research. We will pause for a little bit if you do click through to make a donation, and when we resume, NWABR's engagement manager, Jen Wroblewski, will join to wrap up tonight's celebration. I want to pass on my personal thanks to NWABR and to all of you for the great work that you do. Good evening.
Aaron, thank you so much for doing this pitch for NWABR tonight. It is my role to wrap up the evening, offer some thank yous, and a final request. But first, I'd like to thank our evening sponsors, including Advara, WCG IRB, Pharma, Science Works, and We Work for Health. Their support means that everything that we raise tonight will be going toward NWABR's programs that build public trust. So thank you so much for your generosity. I'd also like to congratulate our awardees, including Dr. Kim Stocking, Dr. Steve Libby, Dr. B. Lynn Beatty, Dr. Judy Illis, the Tahltan Nation representatives, Christine Ball and President Chad Day, Dr. Nancy Hagwood, and the U.S. Animal Research Openness Initiative. I'd also like to thank NWABR's board members who, as you know, have personally contributed out of their own pockets $20,000 and ahead of tonight's event to support NWABR programs. I sincerely want to thank you, all of you sitting around, some of you, your tiny, and some of you, your large screens, for giving up your Thursday evening to join us and to celebrate what biomedical research means both personally and professionally. You walk the walk. And this year, your walk has overawed us. Thank you. One of my roles at NWABR is to plan and hold an annual communications workshop where we help you to build on your already amazing professional skills to help you become an amazing science communicator. So please watch out for notice of this event. This work is so important that funds from this evening that you have so generously donated will help to keep this workshop free of charge. This brings me to our last request. We all need to communicate about biomedical research more often. please build the conversation with your friends and family. Build it on your social media page. If you come across a story that has biomedical research interest, whether it's the science or a people story, please share it broadly on your social media posts. Or you can contact me to ask me to include it in an upcoming NWABR newsletter. We already know that the public wants to hear from you. And so when you do that, we're asking that you use the hashtag #ThanksResearch to further help build public trust in this truly awesome endeavor. Thank you all again. I hope you've had a wonderful evening with us and hope that your evening continues to be outstanding. Good night.